Welcome, foolish mortals, back to the villain's lair. Today I'm going to talk to you about the scoundrel of the seven seas. We're going to talk about Davy Jones. He was originally created in mythology as kind of a euphemism for death on the sea itself. However, Disney kind of adapts this and uses his deals that he makes as a way to temporarily escape from death. In the movies, this helps stretch out the movie's plot a little bit, because it would be hard to add him to the story if he was, kind of associated with that kind of finality. The name David for Davy is supposed to come from Saint David of Wales, who was a saint of safety on the sea, safe sailing, and for those who do pass away on the sea. His last name, Jones, is thought to be a derivative of the prophet Jonah from the book in the Bible, and it's supposed to be kind of a corrupted, darker version of Jonah, just having gone wrong. So I don't know how that came to be, the origins of the name Davy Jones, but that was all I could find online. Is the best sources stated that it is a kind of conglomerate of those two names put together. Now, as we know from the movie, Davy Jones does fall in love with the sea goddess Calypso. His backstory is actually fairly laid out there for us and is a topic of much discussion in the movie, so it's not too hard to dig into it, as we will hear. Really, the only differences that I have to bring to light really have to do with the mythology of Davy Jones more so than his part in the story, because it is pretty, put out there not only once, but I think a couple of times. They do really dig into his backstory and his motivations in the movie. Having fallen in love with the sea goddess Calypso, she blesses him with the task of ferrying the souls of those who die at sea to the afterlife. The movie just calls it the other side. It doesn't especially clarify what to expect there, what there is not, but in the universe of Pirates of the Caribbean, they just leave it all vague. So, his job is to do that. He can only go on land once every 10 years. He's happy and willing to do this task. He's very dedicated to it until that 10-year mark comes and he wants to meet Calypso again, and she's not there. Her justification for this is just that it's in her nature. Seems like a pretty feeble excuse, because, she does state a couple of times in the movies that she loves Davy Jones. She calls herself she who loves him, but she didn't show up, guys. And I'm just saying, if you really, really love somebody, you're struggling already with a 10-year separation from them. You're not going to just miss the day and stretch it into a 20-year separation. And as the sea goddess, it seems like it'd be pretty easy for her to track him down, because he would always be on the sea. Seems like she'd be able to figure that out a little bit, but no, the only reason she gives is just that it's her nature to, I guess, not show up on time. Anyway, he is obviously very, very hurt by this, and in order to avenge himself on Calypso, he meets with the Brethren Court and shows them how to bind her into a human body. Prior to this, travel on the sea has been very, very difficult, very dangerous. Mythologically, people often believed that there were monsters in the sea at this time, because the time in which the story takes place, death at sea was so terribly common, because it was a very dangerous place to be. By binding Calypso and kind of stripping her power from her, this gave humans greater control over the sea and made sea travel a much safer thing. Jones, however, later felt guilt and remorse for this betrayal, and unable to cope with the sorrow of his rejection and rage combined with the guilt of his betrayal, he carved out his own heart and put it in the chest. 13 years before the events of the movie, he meets with Captain Jack Sparrow, whose ship, the Wicked Wench, has been destroyed. The Wicked Wench would later go on to be renamed the Black Pearl. So for those of you who have been confused about the Wicked Wench versus the Black Pearl, they are one and the same ship, just one is its name before its destruction and one is its name after. Jones, of course, accepts this deal and allows Jack Sparrow to be the captain of the ship for 13 years before he would come to collect his soul. Jack only actually gets to be the captain for 2 of these 13 years, and of course then Barbossa commits mutiny and he loses his ship. However, because he still considers himself the owner and captain of the Black Pearl, the deal stands, and Davy Jones comes after Jack. His attempt to capture Jack and get his heart, and Jack's attempt to get Davy Jones's heart in exchange to use as leverage to escape his fate, ends up really escalating the entire events of the Pirates of the Caribbean series, resulting in the release of Calypso, the death of Jones, Will Turner, and Cutler Beckett, and James Norrington, and Elizabeth's dad, and it just kind of all escalates into this huge thing that turns into a fight for the freedom of the sea. And it's really, really weird as the audience, because you find yourself after 3 movies rooting for the pirates, and pirates by definition are not great guys, but they make Cutler Beckett so unlikable that you kind of end up rooting for the bad guys anyway. It's weird, but it is in theme with the Pirates of the Caribbean attraction at Disney World and Disneyland, where you are kind of emotionally put in that same spot, where the song openly says, "We're rascals, scoundrels, villains, and knaves," but you kind of like them. Hard to say why. Oh well. Anyway, the really big difference that we see between Davy Jones of Legend and Davy Jones in Pirates of the Caribbean is the use of Davy Jones' locker. In the historical, mythological version, it was just kind of another name for the bottom of the sea, where the bodies of those who had passed away at sea were lost. However, in the Disney version, it's different for everybody who is sent there. Everybody has a different Davy Jones locker, because Davy Jones designed it specifically with the intent of tormenting the person he sends there to the fullest extent that he is capable of doing so. This means that for Jack Sparrow, it is a large, dry, arid desert, because Jack sees sailing and the ocean and his ship all as one thing: freedom. And so without all of those things, he is trapped forever. Another thing that is unique to Jack Sparrow's particular prison in Davy Jones' locker is the many, many copies of himself. Each copy of himself is meant to represent a different part of his personality, and they exist there with the dual purpose of, one, just driving him absolutely crazy, because Jack in his right mind would drive you crazy, but Jack to the extreme, kind of the extreme angle of every single one of his personality traits, I think that would drive anybody nuts, first of all. And second of all, the reason why there are so many copies of him also is because Jack prides himself on his uniqueness. The one and only Captain Jack Sparrow. And so to have there be so many for him strips him of his uniqueness, his individuality, which only serves to further kind of needle at him and make this place, this undying land of his, kind of even more uncomfortable, because it not only is designed to drive him into insanity, and let's be real, Jack was only about 2 footsteps away from that already, but it, so it's designed to give him that last push into crazy land, but it's also designed to demoralize him completely, to completely break his spirit. So everything that gives him joy, his individuality and his freedom, has been stripped from him in this place. Now for somebody like Will or Elizabeth or Beckett, it would be a completely different story in Davy Jones' locker. There would be something else going on there. However, this is a unique curse just specifically for Jack. Now, it is assumed once Will Turner is killed and takes on the duties of the Flying Dutchman himself, that Davy Jones' locker would supposedly disappear. It doesn't sound like the kind of thing that Will would be into utilizing, and it seems unlikely that he would have much need for it, because we see that he pretty successfully and devotedly continues to carry out the duties of ferrying the dead, for which he is responsible. In this way, Will and Elizabeth serve as a kind of counter, but also a kind of mirror image to Davy Jones, I almost said Blackbeard, to Davy Jones and Calypso, in that while they have their relationship, their marriage, on the exact same terms that Davy Jones and Calypso did, we see that it does work for Will and Elizabeth, and it's hard. I don't know why Will can't have his wife with him on the ship, or his child. You know, you never hear any specific rules stipulating that this cannot be. However, if Calypso didn't do it and Elizabeth didn't do it, they're both pretty determined women. So if it must be somewhere where you just, if you're living, you cannot stay aboard the Dutchman. However, obviously you can be on it for a little while because they have a great big old fight on there and nobody like disintegrated or anything. So I don't know what exactly the rules are for how long you can be on the Dutchman, who can stay on it, that kind of thing. But for whatever reason, that 10-year rule seems to be pretty strictly in place, not only for Davy Jones, but also for Will. So the fact that Elizabeth is always there at that meeting point for them, we see her meet him twice. So there's the evening they spend together before he goes off to do his dead person thing. Then you see them at the end of the movie meet 10 years later with their son. And then in the newest Pirates movie, you do see her and the son meet Will again. So we're guessing this is 10 more years later, which means their son is probably around 20 years old at this point in time. So there you go. So either way, since he does seem to carry on his duties, it does make them a much healthier kind of profile of how a family could get through this very strange situation. Either way, it's a huge deviation from the original kind of legends and mythologies of Davy Jones' Locker, but it's a very interesting, very compelling look at it. And if you think about it, that kind of limbo-like curse would be something that was best individualized for each individual person, because we do have individual things that would make us suffer. And let's be real, Davy Jones is sadistic enough that that's how he would do this, I'm sure. Thank you for tuning in today, and I am so excited that I got this chance to talk to you. Tomorrow we'll cover one of the attractions at Walt Disney World as per the usual, and I am so looking forward to seeing you then. Have a wonderful day.